Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Before we get going here, I just wanted to give you some background. This was shot before I thought about starting a YouTube channel or doing anything YouTube related. I thought I'd edit this all together in some way and post it to some of the Facebook mod groups. The goal of this door project was to add cooling, power, and a remote start outlet without voiding my warranty, which quite frankly went out the window when I changed the backglass. Anyway, the footage here is a little more shaky and shoddy than it normally is in my videos. The early parts were done without a tripod, so yeah, they're kind of bad. My apologies for trailing off as I explained things and for all the jump cuts. I did what I could to add fades and whatnot so it doesn't jump around or end too abruptly. Another thing worth noting here is I'm not a master craftsman. I have a lot of tools, but I can barely hold or work a tape measure. With that said, the steps outlined here is what works for me. Some of them may not work for you or may make you cringe, especially when I get my thumb a little too close to that hole saw. Anyway, I thought the info here was pretty good, so I put it all together the best that I could. Hopefully you'll find it beneficial. I know it's kind of long, so if you managed to stick around to watch the whole thing, thank you. I appreciate it. And if you don't, well, I completely understand. Well, that's it. And without further ado, let's get started. So with installing the LED for the trackball, I needed to figure out a way to get power to it, yet not void the warranty for the ALP4K. So I pulled this all apart and I made a template. Actually, I just traced it out on some Luan. Actually, I made a bunch of them just in case I screw up, but the goal here is to add power to it and have it start up via remote control. The PC's powered separately, so should have no issue with powering everything, leaving the power switch on and powering everything up via remote. What I also wanted to do was be able to supply the power, as I said. I initially grabbed this here, small form factor, great, but the problem is there's no way to mount it, which presents a problem. I cracked it open, took a look inside. My concern is if I start really messing with it, I'm going to create a fire hazard. So I started digging on Amazon and I found this here. It's a little large, but I do believe it'll work. The next thing I wanted to do was put fans in it to get a little bit of air. So I grabbed these from Noctua. So how it should lay out, or at least the plan is to add a fan here, add another fan here, and then get this big bad Larry about right there. I know it's kind of overkill, but if I need to add power later, I can. Plus, if we look around, we got a lot of power ports plus USB, which comes in handy for this, which will power the two fans. And then obviously the remote. So that's the goal. I'm going to see if I can get started here with drilling some holes and figuring out how we can mount all this stuff. So with all the stuff out of the way, we can see here that we've got two spots for mounting. So I'm not a craftsman. I'll do the best I can to get everything centered and working just properly. One last thing to keep pretty. We have these two covers that should take care of keeping it clean and keeping things out of the system. So in going over everything here and getting started, when I was trying to line everything up here, as you can see, you can't really center this. If you want to center it inside, you need to either be off kilter here or here, depending your preference. So if you'll notice, it doesn't quite line up with the hole that we drilled for the lock. The other thing too is the type of screw. I'd recommend not using one of these flathead type. I would recommend using these tapered ones. In this case, we're using number 6s. Now, I should probably buy stock in Home Depot and Lowe's because I've been going there a lot lately. Anyway, you'll notice that we're using 1/2 inch and dash 36s. Depending on how things mount, I even might use the lock nuts here, but we'll see how everything goes in the mounting process. So in getting everything squared away here, I'm going to use the crappier side for the interior. As you can see, there's some, divots and things. But ultimately, what we want to do is take these screws, put them through the back, and then get the nuts on. All right, for the screws, just put them in kind of short. And we're going to flip this over and put the nuts on. All right, so with this now flipped over, we take the nut and we just put them on kind of loose, because the goal here is to make sure that we have enough slack to put the power supply on the back of the board. With the board flipped over, we can now mount this. Take a minute to drop in. Once it's done, it's done. Now that this is somewhat secured in place, I'm just going to hold it nice and tight and flip this over, and then we can work on locking the screws down. Locking the bolts down is nice and easy. Just get a 5/16 nut driver and keep working it till it's good and tight. Whoa. So there you'll see that they don't protrude too much. I think I'm going to test out the lock washers instead and see how these do. So obviously the lock washers are going to be a little harder to work with when mounting but just tighten them down. You're going to have to work it a little bit. Make sure you don't make it too tight so you have enough room to slide the power supply on the screws. It's kind of tough to see, but hopefully this gives you kind of a better idea of what we're working with to try to lock this thing into place, but also avoid the sharp edges that you might run into. All right, so now that we've kind of locked these into place a little bit and we have pretty solid base, we'll go ahead and try to get this all locked in. Sorry if it's tough to see, but it's not easy for me to see it either. So what we're going to do is we're going to push on them, line up that bottom hole, get the top hole in, and then give it a good push. And there, it's secure. And there we go. Lock it into place, because we do need to leave some room for the USBs on this side. And then what we'll do is we'll take this cord and bring it down in this direction over here, which should give us just enough room for the fan in here. Just like that. Or we slide it over here to give us some room for that fan over here. We're still going to play with it and figure it out. We still have to make sure that we have enough for the lip over here. So it's definitely still a work in progress. So in further testing here and trying to set everything up, it appears that this will be in the way. So we're going to need to figure out a better way of mounting the fans and making sure that we still have room on the side. We probably don't need the fans, but I know that it can get pretty hot in there, and I'd like at least some sort of air movement on the door to make sure that we're getting rid of heat, any heat that may be generating. The other option is going to be putting a power here. All right, so we're going to do a quick test here. We're going to just fire this up. We've got the two fans. Again, got to figure out placement on them. And then on one of these, I get that guy plugged in. And that will fire these guys up. Again, got to figure out placement of where we're going to put them, but at least now we know that the crazy harebrained idea is going to work. So after playing around a little bit and checking measurements and things, we want about a 1/2 inch off the edge. So this appears to be the final layout. Not really what I wanted, but this power unit is basically the smallest thing that I could find that I could mount on the back of the board. We want to make sure that we stay about a 1/2 inch off each side. So what I typically do is I start with one, and then I'll lock that down, and then I'll mark out the rest of the screws. So as you can see, we screwed one of them down. We use a 11/64 drill bit, and to tighten everything down, we're using 11/32 nut driver. The screws that we're using are 1.5 inch number 832s. You get the number 832 nuts as well. This is from, I have a bunch of these from a previous project. I've painted some of these black, which will come in handy for these because they match up pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that these are all uniform, straight. I'll mark out all the holes here, and then I'll score the inside of each of the fans to drill the hole. So now that I have everything just about the way I want it, I'm holding everything down and I'm just scoring the holes that I want to drill. It's pretty cheap Luan. So now if we move them out of the way, oh, missed one. We can go ahead, line everything up, and drill. And what we'll do is, as we did over here, we can move everything out, drill the holes, and be sure that everything lines up. So now with everything laid out and the holes drilled, now I can start scoring the outline here. Again, not a master craftsman, so it should give us, once we're done, enough of a circumference to make sure that we can drill everything nice. Okay, so now that we have everything laid out, I have my center holes here. That's where I'm going to drill when I run the hole saw through it. We're using a 3-inch hole saw to cut the circumference of the hole, but my recommendation is to blue tape it. And the reason why I like to tape my cuts is because I've screwed up enough projects to know that if we don't blue tape it, we can mar up the wood, cause a split, something like that. So that'll be my recommendation to you, is to blue tape the areas that you are going to cut, because the hole saw will rip this all apart. The other thing that I suggest is, once you drill your pilot hole from the back here, as soon as the pilot hole goes through, drill it from this side. Reason being is you'll get a better cut, and if it does happen to split, it'll be on the inside where you won't see it. Once you complete your taping of the area, I'm just gonna rip this area out so I have my area where we're gonna drill. And if the blue tape doesn't cooperate, break out your razor knife and carefully just cut the area out. And we'll rinse, wash, repeat on this side here. Everything is blue tape. We're going to find our spot. Just going to cut that center out so we know where to drill. Ta-da. Now we'll get the hole saw out and give it a cut. Now comes the fun part, drilling. So what I recommend that you do after you blue tape everything and you get it all square is line everything up and then start drilling. Now as soon as we go through, we'll run it for a minute. But we do it, we don't go all the way through. So now that we've got a good run on here, we're going to flip it. Now same thing, just start slow. Again, I know it's tough because you can't see it over the top of the drill, but we just go slow. If your tape rips, again, just take it slow. Drill, do the work, don't push. When it starts to bind, just pick it up, and again, go slow. And there we go, done. And then if any of this is off between the two sides, all you need to do is take a razor knife and trim the edge. Again, this is Luan, so it's not very thick. And you can make mistakes with it. That's why I made extras. Just cut off the burrs. And that'll be good. I'll spare you the boring part of doing the other side. Now, as you can see, after pulling all the blue tape off, still have a few burrs I need to cut out, clean up. But as you can see, on both sides, it came out pretty good. Again, not too concerned about the inside, but as you can see now, it is come together rather nice. I'm going to go ahead and just touch all this stuff up. I'm a bit anal retentive, so I'm going to just paint the inside here just so it's all darkened up. But in the end, it's coming along nicely, and these grills will cover the holes just about perfectly. So after touch-up, we'll continue on.
The next morning.
We have this all painted back up. Took care of the cut lines, everything else. I also painted some screws. Essentially used Krylon 15-minute fast dry, although 15-minute fast dry is bullshit. And for the paint, we just used the exterior, interior, high gloss black paint. So we'll go ahead and pull these all out and get everything ready. I always paint a few extras just in case something gets scratched. Go ahead and put those there. Put the box out of the way. Flip this over. We'll get this mounted back on. Take these, you know, pick your poison as to which way you want the vents to lay in here. Personally, I like them going vertically. So we'll go ahead and start the first one. Boink. Might have to force it a little bit after painting. And then we can work our way around. We'll come back after I put everything together here. Me personally, I'm a little anal retentive, so I like my screws to line up. We're gonna keep moving on. We'll get these put in, get this touched up a little bit, and then we'll put the fans in. All right, now that I have everything in place, we're gonna do a little touch up. My favorite is the Sharpie. There's paint pens out there that you could certainly use, but I'm a fan of the Sharpie because it's quick and easy. And for the most part, it blends in quite well. And there's only a few little spots that I personally see that I think need to be cleaned up. But again, remember, it's not like somebody's going to be staring at this. It's just for you in the back. So, you know, whatever you prefer. Now we'll go ahead and flip it over. Start putting the fans in. Now, I know this is a little tight, but this will be fine. Now, I want these to be exhaust, so we're going to put these in face down. Takes a minute. Just line a couple up, and then they'll drop right into place. So now we get our 11/32 nut driver. We can start locking them down. You don't have to be super tight. Check the other side here. And we just adjust these a little bit. So now they're all uniform, or at least close enough. And we'll flip it back over and get this fan installed. I don't want to overdo it. And then go ahead, flip it over one last time. And we just make sure that the screws line up. Now we'll get the power all squared away and hooked up. So with regards to positioning, I probably could have brought this down a little bit more. This is a little tight here for the USB, but not so tight that we can't use it. Boom. So there we go. Then we can kind of wire tie all this stuff up and bring this kind of all together for some cable management. So we'll get that, we'll get everything plugged in, squared away. And just manage these cables the best that we can with some zip ties. So we can get our, little short zip ties here. Try to kind of just work this together, make it look as neat as possible. There's a method to my madness here in the sense that I want to be able to tuck this under here in some way. I'll just zip tie it up. These guys zip tied up. And just cut the ends. And now they're all tied up and out of the way. Now we can go ahead and plug in the power supply for the trackball, so everything fits nice. We've got a couple extra outlets all over the place, even here if we wanted to use them. One last thing to do now is just test it and make sure everything works. All right, everything looks good. Now we can put all the hardware in down here and get it installed in the ALP. All right, so now we'll go ahead and put the lock back in. Make sure that you get the lock mechanism right. So I know I'm kind of working upside down, but this is what it's going to want to look like when you put it in. Again, it's kind of tight. I'm painting it. So we've gone ahead and put the lock into the position. Go ahead and lock it down. So go ahead and just use your adjustable, give it a quarter turn. It doesn't need to be too tight, just tight enough to be snug and hold everything into place. Go ahead and get the nut. So after about 20 minutes of looking for the washer for the lock assembly, 20 points if you can find it. It is actually in the spot, same spot. May have been covered up by something, but it's still there. Alrighty, so first things first. That guy into place. Drop the washer in. Whoops, go ahead and screw it on. Go ahead and take our handy dandy adjustable. Again, doesn't need to be killer tight, just tight enough. Quarter turn or so. Now we'll get this bad Larry installed. Go ahead and, again, that quarter turn, or maybe a couple turns till it's snug. Again, because of that anal retentive guy I am, I want these to line up as best as possible. Don't overkill it, but tighten it just enough. All right, there we go. So lastly, what we're going to want to do is cut the cord here to get the cord out. Obviously, we don't want to go too far, but the other goal is to either put, you know, a 1.5 foot or a 3 foot cord inside, plug it in on the inside here, while spitting it out over here, so we can plug this into the LP4K and get power when we use the remote start option. So we're going to figure out how to get that out next. All right, so we've moved outside. We've got this mounted. About here is where we're going to want to have our finishing hole, so to speak. We want to finish right about here. What I like to do is I like to drill a little pilot hole, and then we're going to flip it over. This is just basically a mark to give us an idea of where we're starting on the front, because we want to drill from the front. So if there's anything that gets marred up, that happens here, not the front facing area. So now we'll go ahead and drill the hole. And then what we'll do is we'll take the Dremel and we'll just notch that area out. So now we have the Dremel. We're going to go ahead and obviously put a hand on here, and then we'll just kind of cut two. That should fit through just like that. And then the other cord will fit underneath there, and we'll be good to go. All right, so digging back in here, we have the extra length of cord that I initially ran for the LED light for the trackball here. But as you can see, the cord's just way too long, especially when we take into account the cord that comes along with the power supply here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this extra piece out, and then we'll add the power supply back in, and we'll tape it up. So just give me a moment or two to take care of that. Okay, so the problem that we're going to have here is we can only utilize these two outlets on the bottom, plus these two up on the top. We can't utilize the outlets up above because they'll knock into that bracket over here. So what we'll do is we'll get the power supply plugged in down here on the bottom for the trackball. Then we'll kind of move this around over here and try to get it into place so you can see how it'll fit. We also need to rearrange some of the wires here. Now, this cord here will plug into the pinball machine. Just let me adjust things here a little bit. So it'll plug in down here. So we'll go ahead and pop this out in a minute here, and you'll see how that all plugs in. But we want to make sure that everything also can fit in that slot. So let's get this unplugged. We'll get it plugged in here. You'll see that the 1.5 foot cord is just long enough. We'll have to zip tie some of these wires up here too, just to keep them out of the way. But as you can see here, we got enough room in the slot that we cut out for all the wiring. So we'll get it dropped into place here in just a sec. And then when we get the door closed up, you'll actually be able to see that we've got some extra room down here on the bottom. Should we have other cords that we need to run for some reason, get extra power underneath it. But I think this looks pretty good. Door will open nice and easy. Whoops. And next we'll get it closed up and get it fired up. All right, so the moment of truth. I plugged in the remote outlet. Here's the remote here. Let's go ahead and turn it on and see what happens. All right, so we've got fan movement here. I can feel the exhaust coming out, so that's good. I think we're good to go here. I think the door looks pretty good. We've got extra room down here should we need to plug anything else in. Hope this video was beneficial to whoever watched it. Thanks a lot for watching if you did, and take care.